You're lying in bed. The lights are off. Your body is still, but your mind is awake and loud. Thought after thought, layer after layer, questions looping, chasing, tearing each other apart. What if I said the wrong thing earlier? Why did they look at me like that? What if none of this is real? Who am I, really? It doesn't stop. And somewhere between the 100th thought and the 1,000th heartbeat, a fear starts to grow. What if I can't shut it off? What if I'm losing control? What if thinking is what breaks me? Let's talk about overthinking not as a habit, but as a prison. It starts small, a replay of a moment, an unanswered message, a slight in a conversation. But the brain, once engaged, doesn't know how to let go. Because to your nervous system, an unresolved thought is a threat. And the more uncertain it feels, the more your brain obsesses. Because it believes, if I think long enough, I'll find safety. But the truth is darker. Let's talk about how the brain eats itself with too much thinking. Thoughts create neural pathways. The more you walk a path, the more real it becomes. So when you obsess, you're not just thinking. You're etching grooves into your perception. You start to feel unsafe. Not because the world changed, but because your mind changed the lens. And when the mind is the source of danger, there's nowhere left to run. Let's talk about analysis paralysis. You try to make a decision. Any decision, but your mind won't stop listing possibilities. Every option has a consequence. Every consequence has a new fear. And fear breeds more thoughts. You freeze. You delay. You disconnect. Not because you don't care, but because your brain turned a choice into a threat. Let's talk about existential overthinking. At first, you're just wondering, then you're spiraling. What happens after death? Is my consciousness even real? What if I'm the only real person here? What if everything I believe is a lie? These aren't stupid questions. They're ancient. Philosophers built careers asking them, but your brain wasn't meant to carry all of that. Alone, at night, in silence. Let's talk about thought loops. You think you're making progress, but you're not. You're circling, replaying, reconstructing, rephrasing, reanalyzing. And what started as a question becomes a spiral. And what started as reflection becomes obsession. Let's talk about cognitive fatigue. You're tired, but not the kind of tired that sleep can fix. You're tired because your brain has been sprinting for days, weeks, years. And now, even in rest, you can't feel peace because silence isn't silent anymore. It's where the thoughts live. Let's pause. You think overthinking is just stress, but maybe it's a form of self-destruction disguised as intelligence, a way your mind tries to fix what it was never designed to carry. And every time you reach for clarity, you fall deeper into confusion because the truth is, the mind was never meant to untangle itself alone. There comes a moment after enough thinking, after enough circling, after enough silent spirals, when something inside you begins to shift. Not suddenly, but gradually, quietly, you start to feel unreal, like you're not really here. Like the world around you is made of fog and mirrors. Like everyone is acting in a play and you forgot your role. Let's talk about derealization, a psychological state where reality itself feels off, strange, artificial, not because it changed, but because your mind can no longer trust its own interpretation. And overthinking, overanalyzing, endless introspection, they are some of the fastest paths into that mental rupture. Let's talk about how obsessive thinking shatters perception. Your brain is a pattern machine. It's built to find meaning, connect dots, understand. But when the pattern seeking runs wild, You start seeing meaning where there is none. Every glance becomes loaded. Every silence becomes suspicious. Every coincidence becomes cosmic. And eventually, you stop trusting the surface of things because your brain is stuck in hyperinterpretation. Let's talk about inner dialogues that turn hostile. At first, it's just your voice. Then it's a chorus. Then it's a debate. And suddenly, you're not just thinking, you're arguing with yourself, correcting yourself, second guessing your own second guesses. You ask, what if this is all a simulation? What if I'm being watched? What if everyone knows something I don't? What if I'm already gone and no one noticed? These thoughts don't feel like thoughts anymore. They feel like realities, and they start to steal your anchor to the world. Let's talk about the collapse of emotional clarity. You try to feel joy, but your brain analyzes it to death. Am I really happy? Is this just a distraction? Am I feeling what I'm supposed to feel? What even is happiness? And like that, the emotion collapses. Under scrutiny, under weight, under the pressure of endless mental dissection, you don't live anymore. You study your own life from behind glass. Let's talk about the horror of being too aware. Most people live in a blur, but you see everything, every micro expression, every shift in tone, every possible meaning in every word spoken. It's not clarity, it's madness with a microscope. And your brain, blinded by insight, forgets how to feel safe in simplicity. Let's talk about the isolation of metaconsciousness. You're not just aware, you're aware that you're aware. You watch your thoughts, you question your questions, you analyze your analysis, and you wonder, where does it stop? Is there even a me beneath all of this thinking? What if I don't exist without thought? And the scariest part, what if I never come back down? Let's pause. You think knowledge is power, and it is. But when the mind becomes untethered, when it starts folding in on itself, when thoughts eat thoughts, you don't feel powerful. You feel lost, not in the world, but in your own head. And the scariest maze to be trapped in is the one that looks like you built it, but no longer know how to escape. You think it's all in your head. The racing thoughts, the endless questions, the collapsing sense of self. But then one day, your body gets involved. Your hands shake. Your chest tightens. Your stomach twists. Your heart pounds as if you're running for your life, but you're just sitting on your bed. And suddenly, the war in your mind has spilled into your flesh. Let's talk about somatic panic. What happens when the brain's loops overload the nervous system? You thought you could think your way out, but instead, your thoughts become a physical threat. Your body responds the same way it would if a wild animal were chasing you, because your mind, obsessing over danger, rejection, meaninglessness, surveillance, identity collapse, is screaming to your nervous system, "We're dying," and your nervous system believes it. Let's talk about adrenal fatigue and internal exhaustion. When you think too much, for too long, about things that have no resolution, your body starts pouring cortisol into your bloodstream like gasoline on a fire. At first, it sharpens you, keeps you wired, keeps you productive. But slowly, it starts to burn you from the inside out. You become tired in ways sleep can't fix. You feel weak, heavy, disconnected, because your body has been on high alert for weeks, months, years. And there's only so long a system can live in emergency mode before it starts to malfunction. Let's talk about physical symptoms of overthinking. Not imagined, not psychosomatic in the dismissive sense, but real, measurable, embodied suffering. Jaw clenching, muscle tension, chronic headaches, shaky hands, nausea, tingling, blurry vision, shallow breath. You go to the doctor, They find nothing. But it's not nothing. It's your body trying to contain a storm your mind unleashed. Let's talk about the freeze, panic, collapse cycle. You overthink. Your anxiety spikes. You try to suppress it. It explodes. You freeze. You panic. You shut down. You wake up and repeat it again. And each time, your sense of self gets thinner. Your trust in reality gets weaker. And your body becomes more scared of your own mind. Let's talk about panic attacks as the body's rebellion. You don't know where it starts. Your thoughts are spinning. Your chest tightens. You can't breathe. You feel like you're dying. You're sure this is it. But it's not death. It's not insanity. It's your body saying, I cannot hold this tension anymore. You have to stop. I will shut you down if you don't. And in that moment, it becomes clear. You are not in control. You've been driving your mind like a machine that was never meant to be pushed this far. Let's pause. You thought thinking would save you, would protect you, would explain the world. But there's a line where insight becomes invasion, where observation becomes obsession, where knowing too much without knowing how to hold it breaks you. And when the mind breaks, the body screams. Because no matter how abstract your thoughts become, your body is always listening. And eventually, it will beg you to stop. You wake up one day and realize your mind is a noise machine, not wisdom, not truth, not guidance, just noise. And in the middle of that noise, there's a whisper. It says, you don't have to keep thinking. And for the first time, you consider the impossible. What if peace doesn't come from understanding everything, but from letting go of what you can't? Let's talk about how you exit the loop. Not by winning the argument, not by silencing every voice, not by thinking the perfect thought that finally brings clarity, but by doing the scariest thing a spiraling mind can imagine, stopping. You interrupt the loop with presence, with slowness, with grounded sensation. You bring the chaos back into your body, not to control it, but to feel it. Let's talk about reclaiming the body from the mind. You start with the basics: touch, breath, movement, stillness, sound, not as escapes, not as hacks, but as reminders. I am here. This is real. I am more than my thoughts. You walk barefoot. You place your hand on your chest. You hum. You cry. You shake. You scream. You breathe. Not to fix, but to exist. Let's talk about exposure to silence. At first, it terrifies you. Silence used to be where the thoughts got loudest, where the spirals fed on stillness. But now, you treat silence like a wounded animal. You sit with it, gently, without expectation, without agenda, and slowly, the silence starts to feel safe again. Not empty, open. Let's talk about retraining the nervous system. Your brain's been trained for years to think your way into safety. But safety doesn't come from thinking. It comes from experiencing. So you start collecting moments of safety. The feeling of sun on your face, the taste of something warm, the sound of wind in trees, the smile of someone who sees you, the moment your breath softens without effort. These become anchors, not intellectual, embodied. Let's talk about witnessing the mind without being trapped by it. Eventually, you stop believing every thought. You start noticing them like clouds in a sky. Some are heavy. Some are terrifying. Some are beautiful. But none of them are you. You are the one watching. You are the space they pass through. And suddenly, you're free. Let's talk about trust. Not in people, not in facts, not in narratives, but in your ability to stay when the mind spins again. Because it will. But now you know, you don't have to follow. You can sit with discomfort without making it worse. You can hold questions without rushing to answer. You can feel fear without feeding it. And that is sanity. Let's close with this. You thought overthinking was intelligence. You thought it kept you safe. You thought it was who you were. But the mind is not a god. It is not the enemy. It is a tool, a loud, brilliant, terrified tool. And now you've learned to hold it without letting it hold you hostage. You've walked through madness and found stillness. You've sat with chaos and built a life. And maybe that voice never goes silent. Maybe the thoughts never stop entirely. But now you know how to stay present, even when the mind runs. You are no longer just the thinker. You are the one who listens, who waits, who knows when to step away and live.